It's funny how life works better when you stop trying so hard. You ever notice something weird? The more you try to control life, the messier it seems to get. You push and push to make the relationship work, to get the job, to feel happy. And somehow the harder you chase it all, the faster it runs. It's like trying to grab water with your hands. You squeeze tighter, and all of it just slips right through your fingers. Alan Watts once said something that hit me like a ton of bricks. The harder we try to hold on to the moment, the more it escapes us. And I think, deep down, you've probably felt that too. That sense of exhaustion, like you're wrestling life to the ground, but it just won't cooperate. So today, let's talk about something powerful. What if, instead of forcing life to go your way, you learn to trust it? What if everything changed, not because you pushed harder, but because you finally stopped pushing? Stick with me, because we're about to explore why letting go might be the most powerful thing you ever do. So, what if letting go isn't weakness, but wisdom? You know, we live in a world that worships hustle, work harder, grind longer, fight for what you want, or someone else will take it. And yeah, there's a time and place for effort. But at what point does trying so hard just turn into emotional burnout? That's the quiet part no one talks about. When you're so caught up in forcing things to work that you miss the magic of just allowing things to unfold. Alan Watts, the British philosopher with the most soothing voice on the internet, he had this way of flipping your thinking on its head. He'd say things like, trying to control the world is like trying to flatten water with an iron. And the more you think about it, the more it makes sense. Forcing life doesn't get us closer to peace. It usually drags us further away from it. So in this video, I want to walk you through the mindset shift that genuinely changed my life. And it might change yours too. We'll explore why letting go doesn't mean giving up, why trust matters more than control, and how this idea, deeply rooted in Alan Watts' thinking, can bring you more peace than any productivity hack ever could. Before we begin, if this message resonates with you so far, I'd really appreciate it if you liked the video. And if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and do that now, so you don't miss any future videos on stoicism, self-awareness, and slowing down to truly live. Let me tell you why. Control is one of the biggest lies we've been sold. So let me ask you something real. Have you ever planned everything perfectly, and life still went completely sideways? You followed the steps. You showed up early, you said all the right words, and still the job didn't work out, the person left, the opportunity passed you by. It's one of the most frustrating feelings ever, because you start asking yourself, what did I do wrong? And that's where the illusion sneaks in. The illusion that we're always supposed to be in control, that if we just try harder, we can bend life to our will. Alan Watts called this the trap of the ego. That part of us that believes we're the center of the universe, and that we can micromanage every detail of what happens around us. But real life, it doesn't care how perfect your plans are. I remember once I stayed up all night prepping for a job interview, suit laid out, notes rehearsed, smiled at all the right moments, and then crickets. No callback, not even a thanks for your time. And in that moment I realized something. Control is mostly an illusion. Sure, we can influence things, prepare, give our best effort, but the outcome, that's never fully in our hands. And honestly, that realization is scary at first. But it's also a weird kind of freedom, because once you stop trying to control everything, You start making space to experience life as it is, not as you think it should be. Alan Watts compared life to dancing. He said, "The point of dancing isn't to get to a particular place on the floor. It's to enjoy every step along the way." But most of us treat life like it's a destination. We think, once I land that role, once they love me back, once I hit that number, then I'll feel okay. But you won't, because control isn't the same thing as peace. And here's the twist. The more we try to force outcomes, the more tense, anxious, and disconnected we become. So if you're stuck in that loop, constantly checking your phone, worrying if things will go your way, let me offer you this instead. Take one deep breath. Let go of the story that you have to control it all. And remind yourself, sometimes the best things come when you loosen your grip. Tell me in the comments, have you ever tried to control something so tightly that it ended up slipping through your hands anyway? Here is practical takeaway. The tighter you hold on to life, the harder it is to enjoy the dance. Letting go isn't giving up. It's actually a superpower. You know what's wild? Most people think that if you let go of something, it means you're weak, that you didn't fight hard enough, that you gave up, that you somehow failed. But here's what I've learned, and it took me a long time to get this: letting go is not the same as giving up. In fact, sometimes it's the strongest move you can make. We grow up hearing stuff like, winners never quit, push through the pain, make it happen no matter what, and yeah, persistence has its place. But not when it's slowly destroying your peace of mind, not when you're hanging on to someone or something that's clearly not meant for you. Alan Watts had this beautiful way of flipping our definitions. He talked about the ancient Taoist principle called Wu Wei, which basically means non-forcing, not doing nothing, but letting things happen in their natural flow without interference. He said the problem isn't effort, the problem is attachment to a very specific outcome. So when you let go, you're not quitting the goal. You're just releasing the need to strangle it. Let me share something personal. There was someone in my life I really wanted to be with. And for a long time, I thought if I just proved myself enough, if I waited long enough, they'd finally choose me back. I bent over backwards to be chosen, but all I did was lose myself in the process. It took everything in me to stop chasing, to sit in the quiet and say, this is hurting me more than it's helping me. Letting go felt like grief at first, but over time, it turned into relief, and eventually, peace. Because here's the truth, you can't force someone to love you, you can't force the right timing, and you definitely can't force alignment. But what you can do is make space. Letting go is how you clear the emotional clutter, so something better can even find you. Alan Watts used the metaphor of swimming. He said, when you struggle against the current, you drown. But when you float, when you trust the water to hold you, that's when you survive. And maybe that's all letting go really is. Floating instead of thrashing. Not because you've given up hope, but because you've finally stopped trying to control the tide. Tell me in the comments. What's one thing in your life right now that you've been holding on to? That maybe, just maybe, it's time to release. Here is practical takeaway. Letting go isn't the end. Sometimes it's the beginning of everything finally falling into place. You ever notice how nature never rushes, but everything still gets done? It's kind of amazing, isn't it? Nature doesn't force things. The river doesn't panic about where it's going. The trees don't wake up wondering how to grow their leaves today. Everything just flows, slowly, silently, perfectly on time. Alan Watts often pointed to nature to help explain how we humans overcomplicate our lives. He said, "The meaning of life is just to be alive. It is so plain and so obvious, yet everyone rushes around in a great panic as if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves. And that's the trap. We think we're behind, that we need to hurry, that life is a checklist and we're running out of time. But nature teaches us something entirely different. Think about water. Water doesn't resist obstacles. It moves around them, over them, through them if it needs to, but never against. And guess what? It still gets where it's going. That's what Alan Watts meant when he spoke about flow. This idea that when we stop resisting the natural pace of life, we actually find our way a lot more easily. It's not passivity, it's presence. I remember watching a small stream in the woods once. There was this log that had fallen right in the middle, and I thought, well, that's going to block everything. But nope. The water just split, flowed calmly around it, and kept going. No drama, no stress, just flow. And I thought, man, if I could move through life like that, what if we stopped seeing every obstacle as a battle and started seeing it as part of the path? Now, I'm not saying life is always gentle or easy, but maybe the answer isn't to force it to be. Maybe the answer is to soften our grip, to trust that we're part of something way bigger, something that's unfolding just as it should. Because when you start syncing with the rhythm of life, instead of fighting it, everything begins to feel lighter, calmer, more aligned. Tell me in the comments, have you ever had a moment where you stopped pushing and somehow everything started flowing better on its own? Here is practical takeaway. The river doesn't stress about the rocks, it just flows around them and keeps moving. Maybe the pain isn't from what's happening, but from fighting it so hard. You ever feel like life is trying to tell you something, but you just keep arguing with it, like there's this inner tug of war going on all the time, and the more you pull, the more tired you get? That right there is resistance, and it's one of the biggest sources of our suffering. See, most of the time, the pain we feel isn't just from the situation, it's from how we fight the situation. It's from the thoughts that say, this shouldn't be happening. They should treat me better. I can't believe this is how things turned out. And suddenly, we're not even present anymore. We're just stuck inside this loop where reality becomes the enemy. Alan Watts once said, "Muddy water is best cleared by leaving it alone." But what do? We panic. We grab the emotional stick and start stirring it all up. Until we can't see clearly anymore. I've done it too, more times than I'd like to admit. There was a season in my life where I kept saying, this isn't fair. This isn't what I planned. I shouldn't feel like this. And the more I resisted what was, the more I suffered. It was like being stuck in quicksand. The harder I fought, the deeper I sank. And here's the thing. Life doesn't always go the way you want. People leave, plans fall apart, dreams change. But suffering, that's what happens when we demand life follow our script. And truthfully, life doesn't read our script. It never did. Watts talked a lot about the tension between desire and attachment. Wanting something isn't the problem. It's clinging to it with everything you've got and refusing to accept any other outcome. He said, to have faith is to trust yourself to the water. When you swim, you don't grab hold of the water, because if you do, you will sink and drown. Instead, you relax and float. So what if the key to peace isn't in resisting less pain, but in resisting less, period? Look, this doesn't mean you shouldn't feel emotions. It doesn't mean you shouldn't care. But imagine this. What if, instead of fighting everything, you just said, okay, this is what's happening right now. You take a breath, you stop wrestling, you allow yourself to feel without judging it. That moment, that's power. That's when you finally stop making your suffering worse than it needs to be. Tell me in the comments, have you ever found that resisting your emotions or reality made things even harder than they already were? Here is practical takeaway. You can't always control the storm, but you can stop screaming at the clouds. What if things actually work out when you stop trying so hard? Okay, this might sound a little strange at first, but what if the thing you're chasing so hard is actually running because you're chasing it? It's wild, right? We're taught that if we want something badly enough, we have to grind, hustle, go all in. And yeah, showing up for your goals matters. But sometimes, the more desperate your energy gets, the more life seems to pull away. It's almost like the universe responds better when you stop trying to bully it into cooperating. Alan Watts explained this beautifully. He said that when you pursue something with tension and anxiety, you create a kind of inner noise, and that noise makes it harder for you to receive what's already trying to come your way. In other words, the moment you stop chasing so hard is the moment things start coming to you. It's the paradox of effortlessness. And it's not about being lazy, it's about shifting your energy from force to flow. Let me tell you something real. I used to be obsessed with reaching a certain income. I read every strategy, every success blog, woke up at 5 a.m. like a productivity robot. I was doing everything right, but nothing felt right. I was exhausted, anxious, constantly wondering why it wasn't working. One day I just said, screw it. I stepped back. I went for long walks. I reconnected with people. I started creating things just because they felt good, not because I had to. And guess what? That's when the clients showed up. That's when the money came in. That's when I realized maybe I was the one getting in my own way. Watts compared life to music. He said, we don't listen to music to get to the end. We enjoy the melody as it unfolds. But when you're obsessed with results, you miss the entire point of the experience. This mindset shift from forcing to allowing isn't easy at first. It'll feel like you're slacking, like you're being careless, but you're not. You're just letting things unfold naturally instead of smothering them with pressure. Think of it like trying to open a jar when you're gripping it with everything you've got. Hands sweaty, teeth clenched. It won't budge. But the moment you relax your grip, try a gentle twist. Boom, it pops right open. Life is kind of like that. Sometimes the most effective energy is relaxed energy. I know it's hard, but what if you just trusted the process a little more? Look, I get it. It's really hard to trust something you can't see, to let go of control and believe things will somehow fall into place. Especially when you've been hurt, disappointed, let down by life before. But here's the thing, trusting the process doesn't mean you sit back and do nothing. It means you do your part and then release the outcome. You stop micromanaging the timeline. You stop obsessing over whether it's working, and you start living like maybe, just maybe, things are unfolding exactly how they're supposed to. Alan Watts used to say, the more a thing tends to be permanent, the more it tends to be lifeless. And that's the trap of control, trying to make everything permanent. The relationship, the job, the feeling of happiness. But life is movement. It changes. It evolves. It flows. And when you trust that flow, you begin to relax into it. You start meeting life where it is, instead of always trying to drag it somewhere else. Even the Stoics got this. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men in history, wrote in his journal, "Accept whatever comes to you, woven in the pattern of your destiny, for what could more aptly fit your needs." He didn't say, force it. He said, accept it. Because when you stop fighting the process, you finally start feeling peace in it. Let me offer a simple example. You plant a seed, right? You water it. You place it in sunlight. But after that, you don't stand over it every 5 minutes yelling, "Grow already." You trust the process, because nature takes time, and honestly, so do you. You're allowed to not have it all figured out. You're allowed to be in between. You're allowed to move slower than the person next to you. Trust isn't passive. It's powerful. It's choosing peace while the storm is still passing. It's choosing faith while the answer's still unclear. Tell me in the comments, is there an area of your life right now where you're trying to rush the outcome, and maybe it's time to lean back and trust a little more? Here is practical takeaway. You don't have to see the whole path. Just trust that every step is taking you somewhere meaningful. So, how do you actually stop forcing everything? Let's be honest. It's easy to talk about letting go. It's harder to actually do it when your heart's racing, your mind's spinning, and life feels like a mess. So let's slow it down. If you've spent your whole life pushing, fixing, chasing, learning to stop forcing things will feel really uncomfortable at first. But here's the good news. You don't have to master it all at once. You just need to practice it, one small moment at a time. Alan Watts used to say, "To let go, you must first realize you are holding on." That's the first step. Awareness. Catch yourself in the act of forcing, like when you're refreshing your inbox over and over, when you're replaying a conversation from 3 days ago, when you're trying to control someone else's opinion of you. Those are moments where tension sneaks in, and in those moments, you can pause just for a breath. Not to solve it, not to analyze it, but to say, I'm holding on tight right now. Maybe I don't need to. Another way to practice non-forcing, start small. Don't plan every minute of your day. Leave space. Let something unplanned happen. Go for a walk without a destination. Journal without a goal. Let a conversation drift without steering it. It sounds silly, but these are real reps for the muscle of surrender. Here's a powerful mindset shift from the Stoics. Epictetus said, "Some things are up to us and some things are not." What if you reminded yourself of that every morning? What's in your control? Your breath, your choices, your attitude. What's not? Their response, the outcome, the timing. Once you learn to separate those things, life becomes so much easier to carry. Practicing non-forcing isn't about being passive. It's about acting from peace, not panic. It's a different kind of power, one that whispers instead of shouts, one that flows instead of fights. And yeah, it takes time to build. But every little moment you let go, you become lighter. You stop gripping the wheel and start trusting that life knows how to drive too. Tell me in the comments, what's one small area in your life where you could try loosening your grip? Just a little. This week, here is practical takeaway. You don't need to control everything. You just need to stay grounded in what's actually yours to carry. So maybe life isn't something you master, it's something you trust. There's one thing I hope you take from this video. It's that you don't have to keep fighting everything. You don't have to force the relationship, force the timing, force the next chapter of your life to arrive right now. You've probably been doing that for a long time. And if you're honest with yourself, you're probably tired. So maybe it's time to try something different. Maybe it's time to float instead of thrash, to trust instead of tighten, to believe that life, messy as it is, actually knows what it's doing. Alan Watts taught that we suffer most when we try to control what was never ours to control. But when you let go, when you stop resisting, you start living with a kind of freedom that no achievement can give you, and that's what I want for you. Less pressure, more peace, less control, more trust. Before you go, let me know in the comments, which part of this video hit home for you the most? I'd love to hear your story. If you found value in this video, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss future insights on Stoicism, Alan Watts, and the kind of self-awareness that actually helps you breathe easier.